Cheers.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, so again, we're here at SoCal SmackDown. As promised, we are able to catch up with Jeff, or Gearbox as some of us lovingly refer to him as. And we'll start out with your first round, because you were one of the finalists. And just tell me about what monster you used and how the game went for you.
Sure. So I brought my protector lists, and my opponent brought collaborators, and he had Zor Raiden, Ultraform, and Ultravoltus, and seeing Ultravoltus as one of the options, I decided to go with Laser Knight. Brought my fuller building Laser Knight,
Nice.
and I pretty much had the game in the bag when on my first monster activation I stepped 4 times, advanced, and threw him into 2 hazardous buildings for 5 damage.
That'll do it.
Chris is a new player, and I really blame my success on the pairing matches. He had fun, I had fun, and he learned things, and the end result was that I killed both forms of Zor Voltus and had 1 health left on my Alpha and 5 on my Hyper. One thing that was interesting is he still had unit advantage over the course of the game, because he got off I was stupid and I let him get off a chain reaction on grappling the garden along the middle line. So,
oh, nice. Did he use the ability zone, or was it the katanas?
It was
native?
katanas.
Okay.
It was katanas.
Now, I know that we were talking about this earlier about, I was running 2 building approach to this, and you were saying, well, I run 4 buildings, I get the resources that I need, and I still have an open map. So,
yeah.
Do you think that worked out for you?
It worked out for me, primarily because my opponent didn't realize that when you're going up against a low building list, you want to aggressive drop as much as possible to interrupt the power structure. It was on grapple in the garden, and I got to lay my 4 buildings on my 4 green zones, which is not a good thing. So I'm a fan of buildings. I like securing buildings. I started playing Defender X back in Rise, so that means that I want to have the options on the board. I want to have 2 sources of subsidize. I want to have the stock exchange out there.
Right.
I love bank HQs. So with Laser Knight, I feel that he's got, on Grapple in the Garden specifically, there's enough mobility there, and on most maps, 4 buildings can get you a good center zone that you can get to, especially with Tornadus and G1s and all that. And it doesn't clutter the map too much, and it also allows me to control a little bit of how the board looks. With 2 buildings, I personally find that I give my opponent way too much control of the board. And I then give him I get 2 of my green foundations, and that's it.
Right, so you're kind of flying in the face of what has typically become the common, idea of the meta as, oh, you can't even secure buildings, stuff's disrupted too much. And Jeff's here saying, wait a second, I think it's worthwhile to secure. You think so? No,
I think that the option is available. I think that against high-end players, yes, securing is not going to happen on ramming speed with G1s, with katanas, with soft disruption, and the boost dice available on blasting attacks. Securing is much worse now than it ever was during the entire Rise block, especially after playing on Vassal with you guys and talking about it and actually adapting that to my own local meta. Securing is not reliable. However, if you can manage to get a secured building or 2, it's well worth it. Because that forces your opponent to come to you and have to deal with it. And the buildings that I brought with Laser Knight are ones where all of them give me a significant advantage. So my opponent has to deal with it right away, which is resources they're spending not on killing Tornadus.
I think that's really wise, Jeff, honestly. I think that's a good way of saying it too. And what 4 buildings were you running?
Bank HQ, Government, Statue, and the Stock Exchange.
Right. So stock and government, stock, statue, stock and statue give you 2 P-die also, which can be huge.
And the bank.
Oh yeah, and Protector. The bank as well. So whenever I was first thinking about this, building, no building, should I rely on buildings, whatnot, the problem was that it was so easy to disrupt that it was never really worth the units to invest. But now I think what we're finding is if you have the units to spare, you know, to put them on those buildings whenever the time arises, it actually can become a really strong play for the simple fact that you open up the ability to multi-turn.
If you can keep the pressure up on your unit turns, you can multi-turn on your monster turns if you have a power base.
Exactly.
And it's generally useful on longer maps like Highway to Hellview or Grapple in the Garden. You generally can't pull it off on ramming speed, but on ramming speed, you're fighting over the middle, and it's really easy to secure stuff on ramming speed. Those are the 3 maps that I was really focusing on over the course of this tournament, so I'm not up to what other maps it would be reflecting on.
Because what I was finding out with the Quosha was, you know, if I'd hyper up for 5, then I could land a good attack, but then I couldn't multi-turn because I couldn't power up the next turn.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think you're dead on, and like, it's a good option if you have it, and depending on certain monsters, it may be a strong thing to do, and it forces your opponent to do something that maybe they don't want to do.
Yeah, you want to limit your opponent's options. You want to force them into having to choose between bad decisions, and having buildings can make that good. And if your opponent is really good at denying you securing buildings, let them go. They're not your buildings. They're on the table. They're the board's buildings now.
Yeah.
Maybe they can be yours for a moment.
Exactly. I like that, the fluidity of it. Perfect. Also, you are one of the main contributors to the wiki, the Team Covenant wiki.
I am an admin.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that I'm a contributor. I really like formatting, and I came up with the majority of the categories for the wiki, and I categorized all of the Monster Apocalypse articles. But for actual content generation, I haven't done much of that at all.
Yeah. But from what I understand, like the new look of the wiki and the way that it's all laid out, and like you said, the categories and everything, which is a central part of having a good reference, a good Wikipedia, is to make sure that things are categorized appropriately.
Yes.
And so we can't thank you enough for that. I know whenever I talk to Robert, he'll probably be watching this, he would like for me to extend an extra thank you as well for putting the time in. And I'm sure that anybody who's using the wiki appreciates your effort too. So just want to tell you thank you so much for that. And
I work on the wiki so that it's my reference. So it's my pleasure, honestly.
Okay. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the finals.
I hope to.
Take care.